And one day, I looked up on the computer and realized we had 48,000 kids homeless in the state of Washington alone.
Now, with great pleasure, when we talk about getting through anything, I have my own inspirational folks. And one of them is Bud, coming to join us here today. Without Bud putting what he has gone through as well and allowing us all to help other people, we wouldn't be here tonight. So help me welcome Bud up here on the stage.
Let's give Tony a round of applause, please. You know, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who I am and how I got here to this point in my life today with Chorus for Kids. One morning, 5 years ago, I woke up and I couldn't talk anymore. I had no voice. I had to write everything down. I go in and see the doctor. I find out I have severe throat cancer. They tell me I'm gonna have to go through chemo and then have surgery. And that there was a good chance I might never talk again. I go through the chemo and then I do the surgery. And after a while, this was all I had. This was the best I would ever have. I was cancer-free, which my wife and them were so grateful for, but I was able to talk again, and I think she was a little disappointed in that because she liked the fact that I couldn't talk. I was always sticking my foot in my mouth, so. And then life went on, the life I'd always had. I got up every morning, got ready, and I went to work. I enjoyed my life. I loved it. And then came the day I was hit by a car in the parking lot. Didn't think much about it, didn't think it was that bad. As time went on, it became worse. I couldn't walk, so I go in and I see a doctor. And he tells me, he says, oh, we just need to put a knee replacement in. So I've done thousands of them. It's a piece of cake. Famous last words of a doctor, piece of cake. About 8 months later, and numerous surgeries, 2 blood transfusions, and 7 months of IV antibiotics, the doctor entered my room one day. He came to me and he said, for me to save your life, I'm gonna have to cut your leg off. Me losing my leg, I didn't think that was too good of an idea. But how was I gonna tell that woman that was standing by my bed, who 22 years earlier had told till death do us part, that I'd already given up? I didn't want to go on. I didn't want to live my life missing a leg. I liked the life I had. This wasn't a life. I could not see the thought of even caring. But I couldn't find the courage to tell her that night. No, I just didn't want to do it. That I wanted to move on and say goodbye. So they cut my leg off. And I went home. And I was a shriveled old man in a wheelchair. I had no purpose. I had no reason to get up anymore. I had no job. I had nothing. I would crawl into a wheelchair and I'd sit there in the dark and wish that every day would go by. And each day got longer and longer. And then finally, one day my wife says, you know, you should come to the school and work with these kids. They would love you. could volunteer there. And I did. And sure enough, they did. The kids thought I was a transformer robot. They thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread. They high-fived me going down the halls. They'd hold my hand and make sure I wouldn't fall, because at that time, I had a new leg. I just learned how to walk again. And I felt a lot. But they were always there to help me. But see, about 3 weeks in, I was in the cafeteria, and I saw this 9-year-old boy take his lunch. And he goes over to the table and he sits down. And then he takes his pizza and he wraps it in a napkin, his French fries, and he puts this in his backpack, along with the applesauce and the 2 milks he had. He notices me staring at him, and he, out of embarrassment, he puts his head down on the table, thinking maybe he didn't feel good. Maybe he was saving it for later. I go over and I ask him, I said, "Are you all right? Are you just saving that for later?" And he looks up at me with tears in his eyes. And he said, "You don't understand." He said, "My sister hasn't eaten since yesterday, and I was able to eat breakfast, and I'm taking this home to her." I said to him, "Where's your sister at? We'll buy her lunch." And he tells me, he says, "No, my sister's 3 years old. We live in a car because my dad can't find a job." At that moment in my life, I'd never been so ashamed of who I was and how I'd felt for so long. You see, my whole life, all I'd thought about was me, who I was. All them months sitting in that wheelchair, all I thought about was me and how I had to live this life the way it was. This 9-year-old boy in 15 seconds taught me the most valuable lesson in life. See, he thought more of his sister that day than he did himself. Of course, that day I bought him another lunch. And for the next 6-7 weeks, I kept my wife's refrigerator in her office full of Lunchables. And he told me one day, he says, "You know, I like the Lunchables with the chocolate chip cookies in it." Let me tell you, I was Safeway, Albertsons, Fred Meyer's every other night picking up chocolate chip cookie Lunchables. And every day he would come in and grab 2 of them for him and his sister. And then after many weeks, his dad had found a job and they'd found a home. And he would transfer to another school. But the last time I saw this kid, he was smiling. See, I'd never seen him smile before. Because see, when you're homeless and you are ashamed of the situation you're in, you kind of tend to look down all the time at life and at the ground. But I saw a smile. And I knew at that moment that this kid was going to be okay. But see, I went home still after that. And I still needed to find the reason why my life was the way it was. See, all this time I'd been trying to figure out what I'd done wrong in my life to deserve the fact that I had had throat cancer. And I was one of very few, I guess, by my doctor saying, that I lost a leg. I needed to understand why that this had happened and what I'd done wrong. And then I started working with other kids, and I found other kids that were homeless. And one day, I looked up on the computer and realized we had 48,000 kids homeless in the state of Washington alone. So, me and some friends of ours started what is now Quarters for Kids, trying to help support McKinney-Vento, help the people in the McKinney-Vento in these school districts, help these kids. I watched a kid just 2 months ago that was homeless that on Wednesday, he would turn his shirt inside out because he had stains on it. And he'd wear it the rest of the week. I can't imagine a child that lives in a car in a Walmart parking lot when his birthday comes, because they don't tell anybody. They don't share it, because who's going to come celebrate the birthday when they're living in a car? But there is one thing I'd like to tell you about. Our federal government has this program called the McKinney-Vento. It's mandated by the government, and each state, they give $995,000 to each year, to each state. If you do the math, at 48,000 kids, at 365 days a year, it's $28 a year that the federal government supports these kids. If you're a prisoner, you get 3 meals and a warm bed every night, and the state spends over $60,000 on you. When did the value of our children become so little? Why is it they're the second thing that we think about? Course for Kids has been the greatest thing that's ever happened in my life. I found out it wasn't so much that I'd done something wrong in my life to lose my leg. I needed to slow down and realize that there was a life out there outside of mine. And it took me, a 9-year-old boy, to show me that I needed to think about other people instead of myself. So tonight I'm asking you, please think about these kids. They don't have the abilities to pull their bootstraps up, change their life like grown-ups do. They count on people. They depend on us to help them. And with this Christmas coming and this winter, it's cold out there. And they're in the Bethel School District. There's 187 kids right now that are unsheltered. That means tonight they're either staring at the stars, or they're sleeping in a cardboard box, or maybe in the trees behind the library. We don't know. But you know what? We can help these kids one kid at a time. We can make a difference in their life like they did mine. A 9-year-old boy taught me about life. It took me 54 years to learn it. But I learned it. And I hope tonight you guys have enjoyed this event we've had. And I hope that you'll reach into your pockets tonight and support Course for Kids in the Bethel School District and help us help these kids have a better Christmas and a nice holiday, New Year's, and then a winter. So I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. And like I said, we have our silent auction over here that's going, and we have a raffle that we're going to do here in a minute. So if everybody has their tickets, I'm going to call Tony back up here.
A round of applause for our motivator, our inspirer here tonight.
Donate today at quartersforkids.com or via the QR code on your screen.